Hello. Welcome to podcast number 4 of The Normal Intuitive. My name is Nancy. I run a website at one-question.net, and I am a psychic medium that happens to be just an ordinary mom and spouse, stay-at-home mom, and you can find me on my Facebook page at facebook.com/one question at a time. That's one spelled out, or on Instagram at the number 1 question at a time. And my mom confession, I'm going to start doing these in the podcast, is that right now my 4-year-old son is in the other room watching TV, and I heated up some frozen pancakes and sausage for lunch with lots of syrup because that's what he wanted. And I am not going to feel guilty about it. So that's my little confession. I wanted to get that out of the way to show you that I am 100% not intuitive about myself, because I obviously wouldn't have given him syrup if I'd known what he's going to be acting like in about 30 minutes. But I digress. So on today's episode, I wanted to chat about taking risks and the signs that the universe will show you to let you know that you're on the right path. And it's really interesting because I just looked outside my window and there's a beautiful sparrow just kind of staring back at me. That was really neat. And that's just another one of those signs that the universe is working. So once again, I really didn't have an idea for the podcast. I didn't think that I was going to be doing a podcast today. They always just kind of come up with the things that have been coming up in my life. And something interesting happened this morning. A friend and client of mine text messaged me and said, "You've got to call me this morning. You've got to call me." So I call her, and she was very excited because I had answered a question for her about a month and a half ago now, 2 months ago maybe. And she had a friend that went to an intuitive and got messages. Her friend went to another country and where they kind of have medicine women and spiritual women. And this woman had a message for my friend. And it turned out to be almost verbatim the same message that I gave my client/friend a couple of months ago. And she was very excited to share this whole story with me. And she said, "Well, what does it mean? What is going on?" And I said, "Well, it means that the universe is aligning. The universe wants you to know that that message is in fact true." And for me, in my personal life, I get this question of how did you know you were a psychic medium, and how did this all come about? And honestly, it was a slow process. But one of the things that always gives me a clue that I'm on the right path is I will have several signs like that, one after another, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So if you are worried about taking a risk, for me, I always look for signs. And you can ask the universe for signs, the universe or God or whoever you pray to. Ask God or the universe to send a sign. And for those of you that don't believe in signs, let's talk about this. And I actually talked about this with my friend this morning. So why does God and the universe send certain people signs and not others? And my answer to that is that they're only going to send signs to those that they know are going to pay attention. So for instance, my husband is the most rational man you will ever meet. He is very straight-laced, and even though his own wife is a psychic medium, he just chooses to look straight forward. So is he going to get signs and messages? No, because the universe knows that he's not going to be paying attention to those things. So when you ask for a message from the universe, really be on the lookout for that. Really be on the lookout for that sign. And I promise you, if it's the right decision, you will in fact get that sign that you were asking for. On a personal note, I am actually struggling with taking a huge risk. And it's one of those risks that I've just been contemplating, but I had a dream about it last night, and it keeps going on in the back of my brain over and over, and I keep chewing on it, and I hate that. But usually that means this is the direction I'm supposed to be going. And this risk makes no sense to me. It's actually very similar to when I started this website. It makes no sense to me why I should be doing this. And I don't know how I'm going to pull this plan off that I feel like the universe is pushing me towards. And it's really freaking scary. And even though I'm a psychic medium, My husband always wonders why we haven't won the lottery yet, because I'm obviously not psychic about myself. So I just don't know what to do. And I'm wondering, do I just, throw caution to the wind and go for it? Or do I hold back? And my personality has always been to go for it. Hence this website, kind of on a whim at 3 a.m. a few months ago. And I know that I'll probably go for this risk, but it's super scary because I don't know how it's all going to work out. But I should follow my own advice that I tell all of you when we do a reading, which is the universe is going to line up if it's really meant to be. And this kind of ties into doing a reading with me. I had someone this week contact me, and she was a little apprehensive about doing a reading. And she started out with that. She said, I've been debating about a reading for a while, but I'm so nervous. And my answer to that is if you're listening to me right now, there's obviously something that the universe wants you to know, or God is obviously leading you in this direction. Again, if we're looking for signs, we're going to find them. And I know that rational people kind of use that reasoning to say, oh, it's just, it's nothing. You're creating a sign. And psychologists will say, if you want to see the color red, you will eventually see the color red. But at the same time, I'm not going to be as cynical as that. And I know firsthand from my abilities that God and the universe will put things in place to guide you down the correct path you're supposed to be on. For instance, listening to this podcast, there's no coincidences. You are supposed to be listening to this right now, and I really appreciate that. Same thing with readings. If you're meant to have a reading, you're going to be pushed towards someone. I had a client the other day that just Googled intuitive. And I was on the second page because I was like, how did you find me? I don't think I get that many hits a month that I would be a first click. And she said, you were on the second page. And she said, I don't know. I was just drawn to you. And she ended up booking an hour reading, and she got the information she needed. So going down that line of thought, it's totally normal to be apprehensive and worried about a reading. But if you feel kind of pushed in that direction, and these are a couple of things that will happen, at least in my own personal life, when I'm pushed towards doing something. It'll keep coming up in my brain over and over again. I might have dreams about it. I know a friend of mine has asked me to write a blog about what dreams mean when loved ones come in. And I've started writing it, and I've told her this, but I haven't published it yet. And one of the things I talk about in this future blog that I'm going to post is that sometimes your loved ones come in to give you a push forward. So you may receive signs in a dream. Another thing that might happen, and I've heard this, and I think this is one of the most common ways of kind of that sign that you're supposed to go in that direction, is you'll keep hearing things about it. You'll hear a song about it, or you'll see a commercial. Let's say you're supposed to go to San Francisco. All of a sudden, one of your friends will kind of off chance mention that she went to San Francisco. And then the next day, maybe you see a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge in a magazine article, but it'll keep popping up. And that's another sign that you're supposed to go through with that. So, for instance, in terms of a reading, if you keep hearing about this wonderful, normal intuitive named Nancy, I'm totally joking, then that's probably a sign that you're led to me for whatever reason, whether it's to get a reading or just listen for guidance or just listen to these podcasts. But either way, when you are pushed in a direction, you will get messages in lots of different forms. Music, TV, people will be talking about it. And it can be scary because generally when you're getting signs to do a reading, it's probably something that you're not very comfortable with. Because if you were comfortable with doing a reading, you're not going to hesitate. You're not going to wait for that sign. You're not going to wait for that penny on the ground. You're just going to go ahead and book a reading. But for those on the fence, truly ask for those signs and have faith that you will receive the sign that you're supposed to get, the answer that you're supposed to get. I have a good friend that was wondering about moving. And she asked for a sign from a loved one that had passed of a sign of moving. And sure enough, I think a few days later, her mom happened to send her the school colors from the place that they were thinking about moving. I think she sent her like an M&M treat or something. And it was like, oh my God, you had no idea. Why are you doing this? And she knew that they were supposed to move. In my case, this risk that I'm talking about taking that I unfortunately cannot reveal anymore at this time, was chatting with a friend this morning, and I happened to just get off the phone with my husband, kind of clearing it. And she texted me and said, oh my gosh, I thought I had just sent this to you, but I swore you just responded with this date we were talking about. And I said, no, but I was just mentioning it to my husband. And so somehow the universe had already communicated to both of us that we were already on the same page, and we didn't even realize it because she had sent the message somewhere else, and I had been talking to my husband, not even chatting with her. But the universe was letting us both know, all right, this is the date you need to be. This is what needs to happen. So look for those signs, and if you're not seeing any signs, don't despair. Don't think that the universe doesn't have your back. Don't think that the universe isn't watching out for you. The universe is always watching out for you, and the universe is there. But perhaps you're not supposed to know now. I remember Sylvia Browne had a really famous quote that God always answers your prayers. Sometimes the answer is no. And in some cases, no answer really does mean no. So for instance, if you're not meant to go on that trip to San Francisco, you're probably not going to hear anything about it. And probably that thought of yours will kind of float away within a few days. But if you were meant to go, you'll keep hearing about it. And likewise for a reading. If you've been debating about a reading or even asking a question, one-question.net is a great way to kind of put your foot in the water of trying to see if you would be comfortable with a reading without putting all of yourself in the water before, jumping in the pool. So it's a good way. It's $30 for a question and a follow-up question, and you're able to try it out without really getting into too much detail. But it's things like that where maybe you don't have to take the full risk, but you can take a little bit. You can put your toe in whatever risk you're trying to take. It may not be a reading. It may be trying a new career path. It could be moving. Whatever it is, ask the universe for a sign. And one way or another, you will get an answer. You just have to be open to the answer you're receiving. And that answer could and very well be no. And I think that we generally do not like hearing the word no. I know that my 4-year-old definitely does not like hearing the word no. And my 9-year-old, well, she just doesn't hear the word no. She's 9 going on 19. And I don't think we ever change from that childlike stubbornness of not liking to hear the word no. And it can be difficult and it can be frustrating. And that's when we start to lose faith. And this is huge, and I've been there, where you feel like you're stuck and maybe you've asked the universe for signs and for direction and you're not getting anything. Well, that's when you have to look inside yourself and think about what you're wanting or needing, you think you're needing to change, or the direction you're going. Is it really the direction that you should be going? What is it that right now you are being resistant about? That's a huge time for growth. When we feel like we're stuck, it's really that we are not done learning the lessons that we need to learn from that particular situation. And I know it's frustrating as all heck, but remember, I've talked about this before. Sometimes it's just switching the angle a little bit and looking at things from a different point of view and trying to figure out what it is that you can do differently, how you can approach the situation a little differently so that perhaps you can get past it. Unfortunately, there are things that we all have to go through that suck, whether it's divorce or death or other people's death, obviously, or people being sick or parents or whatever it is. There's all kinds of stuff that we have to go through. We have to walk over those coals. And it's hard, and we just wonder, when is this hard time going to end? And that's when our faith is really tested. but we have to believe